All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Thursday, February 22nd. Fuck it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat Clayton. It is time for the spring issue of the BO Boys. And whenever we do anything seasonal, we got to bring in the seasonal man himself from Exhibitor Relations Co. Jeffrey Bock is here with us. Jeff, welcome to the BO Boys.
BO Boys, thanks for having me again. I am bringing the box office sun. It's coming out. As you know, it's been so difficult. This January and February has hurt me, and I know it's hurt you guys. It hurts to talk about these things, these negative things, week after week after week.
Yeah.
But I'm bringing the sunshine. It is here. March is going to be a mini summer, and I think we're all going to be better for it.
The future's so bright. I'm wearing shades.
There it is. Look at this guy. Look at this guy.
That's why you got to subscribe to the YouTube channel, because you could see Clayton's dark sunglasses on YouTube.
I'm cool now.
So, Jeff, this has been a snowy, rough winter at the box office. We don't want to talk about Lisa Frankenstein anymore.
Oh, God.
All right? We don't want to talk about Argyle. God, I mean, we really don't want to talk about Argyle.
I mean, we could talk about The Chosen, but that's a different audience, and it's a different segue,
Well, before we get into the spring preview, we've got one last weekend of February to go. One last, I guess, even though winter isn't officially over till March, I would say the box office winter ends this weekend.
Absolutely.
So let's just quickly touch on the new releases coming out February 23rd. Driveway Dolls. It's a half a Cohen movie. Thumbs down from Jeff. Is this another Lisa Frankenstein?
Absolutely. It'll be lucky, I think, to do Lisa Frankenstein numbers. Not that it's a bad film. It's just it was never going to interest the multiplex masses. It's a throwaway by Focus Features. And unfortunately it is a Lisa Frankenstein type film. It just is, It just feels like a 90s road movie. That nobody really asked for, unfortunately. And maybe it's cool. And maybe there are some great scenes in it, but still nobody's going to go see
it. It feels like that wave of post-Pulp Fiction, fake Tarantino, fake Coen brothers, even though it is from half the Coen brothers. It's half a
Coen bro does not make a Coen bro. That's just a Coen, as you know. Yeah. That doesn't mean anything,
And you know what one Coen can do? Garfield movies.
Oh God, that hurts. But
those are Coens, not the same one, but that's just one Coen.
That's a Coen. It's got to be Coen bros. Like there's no Super Mario Bros without Mario and Luigi. You're just talking about a Super Mario bro, but that's not how it works. They're a team, man. That's how they work. Yeah. That's how they work best.
What about Demon Slayer? I mean, that one a couple of years ago, the spring 2021 Demon Slayer did like 20 million, but we've gotten past that now, right?
Doesn't it feel like the animes? I mean, it's cooled off a little bit, right? And I just feel like if I was looking at the pre-ticket sales for this, and they weren't electrifying like they used to be. You know what I mean? Right. So if this could do 10 million, that would be great. I don't know. In a lot of the box office previews, most people don't even think it's going to do that much.
Wow. And that one in spring 2021 did like 20 million, almost beat Mortal Kombat. But the holdovers from last weekend, like Bob Marley will still do double digits. So we're not in danger of having a no double digits weekend.
No. I think we're right. Yeah, Bob Marley should lead it. Hey, maybe Demon Slayer 2 or whatever this is, whatever incarnation of Demon Slayer this is, maybe it surprises and maybe we underestimate. That would be cool if it had one weekend. But this we know the drop-off is going to be steep. It is going to get its legs chopped off. Anime hasn't been holding like it was for a bit there.
So you mentioned The Chosen, and those Chosen TV shows they've sold some popcorn the last few months. Nothing spectacular, but they've gotten some people in the theaters that wouldn't have gone otherwise. There is a religious movie opening this weekend with Hilary Swank, Ordinary Angels. Is that movie poised to do anything? A year ago we had the Kelsey Grammer religious movie, The Jesus Revolution, did some February business. Ordinary Angels, Hilary Swank, is there anything there, or is this also single digits?
No, I think if any movie surprises this weekend, it's Ordinary Angels. Like it's very hard to predict the faith-based audiences, and we always undersell them and we always lowball them going into the weekend. So if anything is going to do double digits, it's probably Ordinary Angels. We're just not looking at those Midwest theaters, those Bible Belt theaters, which will probably be very packed this weekend.
Well, here's why I am not as big on this as I would be on something like Jesus Revolution. Two factors. Jesus, because Jesus is in the title, and Jesus is a huge IP.
Yeah.
Right? So that's big. And I'll be honest with you, Kelsey Grammer in that sort of film, that's sort of his demo. That's his market. Hilary Swank, I don't know so much. I don't know how many people in Middle America, other than, listen, she was in a Clint movie, won an Oscar for it. She was in the fourth Karate Kid movie. So there is knowledge of her absolutely in the Heartland. But is she a sweetheart of the Heartland? I don't know. I think Kelsey Grammer more so is.
It'll be interesting, I think, only in that it does have angels in the title, and that is close to Jesus. And when people hear angels, they think, I got to go see that. Otherwise, I'm not doing good by the Lord. And so there may be a push. Although maybe all those people went to The Chosen episodes 1 through 3 and now 4 through 6. And maybe they said, you know what? That's enough religion in the movie theaters for me. I'm waiting for Dune like everybody else instead.
Well, and Ordinary Angels, those are not the most enticing type of angels to get people to a theater. These are not, why not call this movie Extraordinary Angels? I'm sure it's a plot about just everyday people helping and spreading the word about Jesus, something like that. But it's just not, there's not a lot of pizzazz in Ordinary
you're right.
Angels.
You're right about that, Pat. I mean, this may be a missed title and people hoping for Extraordinary. But if there is a sequel, I think they should run with Extraordinary Angels.
That's true. But you don't want to get caught in that trap of saving something for a sequel that never comes to be.
You're right.
So they may have made that mistake. But you mentioned Dune. That's what everyone's waiting for. Let's get into the spring issue. And how big could Dune possibly be? Is this a movie? I've been saying that this could ride that sort of Oppenheimer wave of people want a big but critically acclaimed type of movie to get them out to the theaters in a serious way. Could this open to $90 million, $80 million, something like that? Is there a chance that it goes that high?
Yeah, I mean, I think doubling what the original did is a real possibility. I mean, you guys both saw those AMC popcorn buckets, right? Those Dune popcorn buckets. I mean, those things were selling for other reasons than popcorn, but they're popular. But it's just weird because that hit SNL, right? And when something goes that big, that becomes just viral in itself. And let's be honest, adult-oriented sci-fi usually doesn't do well in theaters, or it has an opening and then it tails off and maybe it makes 100 million, 115 million, and that's where it ends up. Dune is a strange thing because obviously the pandemic and when it opened and now it's had this revival in theaters over the past couple weekends, pretty good numbers for this film, even though it's been on HBO Max forever now, and honestly, Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya, they're still trending upwards. I didn't even think that was possible, but it is. And so it's almost hitting at the perfect time. Also, like Clayton, when was the last blockbuster that came out? It's been like months. If you're not even talking about Wonka, you got to go way back to like summer. So the appetite, when we talk about, and we always talk about this, the appetite, it is going to be like a sandworm that is so freaking hungry for a big budget popcorn movie. And Dune is just coming at that perfect time. It's been so slow the last 2 months. People that I don't even think saw the first one, they want to see the second one. That's how big this thing could be. And you're right. If it hit 100 million, I mean, I would not be shocked. I think somewhere closer to 80, but I don't know because it's been so long since we've had a huge blockbuster that is really worthy of the IMAX and the cinematic experience. And that's what we're getting with Dune Part 2, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very high on this, and I'm high on this for all the reasons you said. The stars in this, not even speaking about people like Austin Butler and Florence Pugh, but Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet, and I've said this several times on this show, the way they're marketing this as a romance is a Titanic-esque romance between the two of them. That is something that is going to drive people that normally wouldn't go see adult sci-fi. That is going to get the people who are, I'm here for this love story between these two huge stars. And when's the last time Zendaya was on screen? I
Yeah.
mean, Challengers got pushed, so she didn't have Challengers first. This people are starved to see her on the big screen because she is a star.
Yeah.
And so I do think that is going to be the whole pent up excitement of seeing her on a large screen for her massive fan base that
Yeah.
crosses all ages.
Yeah.
I'm so high on this movie.
Yeah. Biggest film of the spring, no doubt about
Hands
it.
down.
Not even a question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you said the cast for this is just it's filled with everyone, you know,
Yeah.
and like all of the people who we think could be young future full-on movie stars. It has so many of them. And, you know, Austin Butler's in this, and he's the villain who may have an Oscar nominee worthy part, and Florence Pugh is in this. It's just got everybody.
Anya
And so
Taylor-Joy.
Yeah.
Anya Taylor-Joy.
Exactly. Yeah, and that was like a surprise thing, just came out, you know, although some people were already talking about it. But like this is, if you're not excited about this, do you even movie, bro? Like this gets you excited to go to the movie. This is what all those AMC stock junkies talk about. Like, oh God, we're shooting to the moon, baby. This is worth it. This is not hype. This is the real deal. This is what Hollywood needs more of. We need to plant a Dune 2 in like January, February. We cannot have another lull like we had. I know there was the strikes and you can blame it on this and that, but guess what? Hollywood, you are a well-oiled machine for 100 years. You can't have these lapses in the release calendar. It hurts the industry time and time again. And hopefully now that we're away from pandemic and strikes, we will never see a time like this again. And I like that, like Warner Brothers dated that Mickey 17 for late January of next year, and it's going to hit in IMAX, you guys. So, I mean, that's what I'm talking about, Warner Brothers.
Yep.
That is the foresight that I want to see. I want to see this spread out over the release calendar. March is hitting bam, 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 Ghostbusters, Dune, Kung Fu Panda 4, Godzilla X vs. Kong. You know, it's like, that's a month worth getting excited about. You couldn't put one of those in January, February to keep the excitement going?
I mean, March, I'll tell you, March looks like a better summer month than some of the summer months that we're going to have this summer. I think I would take March over this June, the way everything's slated to come out.
Yeah,
you know, in March, you've got like 3 movies that could be pretty huge. In Dune and Kung Fu Panda and the King Kong movie.
Yeah, March would rival maybe June and August. So I think you're right. March would probably beat out 2 of those months. And May is not a guarantee. It's just not. Like I look at those titles in May, and we'll talk about this in the summer preview at a later date. But those are not slam doinks. None of those.
They're not slam doinks.
None of those really are. Fall Guy is the iffiest, scariest summer opener in the decades, you know?
Yeah.
It reminds me of like the 80s, which is cool, but scary because of where we're at the box office these days.
I think on that one, Clayton and I are both optimistic about that one, despite the trailers. And I think that's always a problem when you have to almost ignore the trailer to think that a movie is going to do well. I mean, that's not the case with Dune. You mentioned Kung Fu Panda 4. Is there any, I mean, this thing, the rats are starving for cheese. The kids have not had anything. They've been going to see Migration over and over and over again for months. That movie did what, 8-9 times its opening weekend?
Yeah.
You know, it's that if there isn't
they seriously want this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be huge. It's got Jack Black, whose stardom has not waned at all amongst the kids. This franchise, could this possibly be the biggest of this franchise just based on the fact that kids are starving so much right now for movies?
I didn't do my research on Shrek 4, but wasn't Shrek 4 really big? Like, compared to like the third one. I know all the Shreks were really big, bigger than Kung Fu Panda, but as I recall, I thought the appetite for Shrek just kept increasing, and it's possible Jack Black, doing his little videos and stuff like that, he still has the public's attention. So yeah, I think you're right. Whether this is good or not, it's still going to be a pretty big hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking. So Shrek 4 did decline from the previous ones. Shrek, the biggest one is Shrek 2. Shrek 2 is domestically the biggest of the Shreks.
And if I'm looking at the Kung Fu Panda numbers, and it from 1, 2, 3 worldwide, it goes 631, 664, 521. So I guess the question is, does this thing hit 500 million worldwide? That would be a success. I think that's the bar that they definitely want to reach for.
And domestically, we're looking at the first one 215, and then second 165, and then 143. So
it's going down,
diminishing. But I think if this thing makes 120, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And look at when's the next animated film coming out? Oh, guess what? Not until what? Never. Now it looks like not until the Pixar movie in June. So guess what, guys? How long is this playing? Yeah, in months.
Well, I think you're skipping over the Luca re-release.
I'm sorry. Did I forget the Pixar films that gross a mighty $1 million?
We know someone's kid. We know someone whose kid really loved that movie.
Yeah. I am skipping over that. Yes, absolutely. Luca will do $1.2 million total.
I think the thing that this Kung Fu Panda 4 has going for it now, compared to, say, the third one in 2016, is that these kids' movies now are multiplying better than ever because there's just so much less product. 2016, I'm sure you didn't have to wait 3 months before another kids' movie came out after Kung Fu Panda 3. Whereas now, I think this movie comes out in March, opens big, and then just plays and plays and plays. Again, Migration made 9 times its opening weekend. Kung Fu Panda 4 could make more than the third one just based on, kids having no other options.
And guys, here's the thing. So talking Jack Black, Pat, you brought him up.
Yeah.
The last Kung Fu Panda was 2016. Jack Black, again, he's always been a hit with the kids, but he had Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle.
Yep.
After that.
Yeah.
He's bigger now. Mario. He was Bowser in Mario.
Good points.
He is bigger now with kids than even at that moment in 2016. And even probably when the first Kung Fu Panda came out. So I think his notoriety among children is going to drive this probably higher than the third one. I mean, I could see this going higher. Yeah. It's not going to go higher than the first one, but it could go higher than the third one because of this. Yeah. Plus, he's in that Borderland trailer. He's going to be in that Borderland movie, and that trailer is going to be everywhere. Not that that's a kid's movie, but still, I mean, Jack Black is everywhere.
How do you guys remember there was also a Kung Fu Panda series, right, on one of the streamers?
I think it was Netflix.
Was it Netflix? Yeah, and was Jack Black the star of that?
That's a great question. I don't know.
I don't know, but they did definitely try to make this a streaming entity, and for some reason I think Jack was a part of that, because you can't do Kung Fu Panda without Jack, right? Mm-hmm. It seems like that. Anyways, unless they did a spinoff. I never saw it, but
I think Kyle Gass did the voice.
Okay. Yeah. The point is, kids still remember that, or they watched it. So it's kept, even though it hasn't been in theaters since 2016, it's been out there. The IP is out there. It's making a sound. It's doing its thing, and kids recognize that, So they're ready for more of this. And that's the week after Dune. So guess what? Dune's going to do huge numbers second weekend, and Kung Fu Panda is going to do huge numbers, and we're going to feel like it's just going to feel like a mini summer. It's going to be a heat wave. And then, we get into that. And then right after that, we're talking about, we do have a little break. We do have
there is going to be Ghostbusters in March. And this is the one, I mean, I think Clayton, you'll probably agree. This one feels iffy to me. I'm glad it's coming out. I'm sure that it's going to do business for the theaters. I don't think this thing's going to come out and make no money. But from where I sit right now, I feel like this is going to do less than Afterlife. I don't think the Ghostbusters franchise has much left in the tank. But you know what? it's a movie that, based on how much marketing will be around it, will sell some popcorn. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's good for theaters. But
If it
where
could
do you think?
Yeah, if it could open near 40 million, close to that, it'll probably be 37. It'll come in at. That's still a good number. Again, I don't think Ghostbusters Frozen Empire cost 200 million. I think Sony was wise to it's probably like 120. And that's a great number. If you're going to greenlight a Ghostbusters film based on what Ghostbusters films have been doing at the box office, 120 is a great number because you can make that back. You can sell it to Netflix. It's part of this IP that, and they'll probably squeeze another one out of this. They'll probably get that trilogy. I like that Paul Rudd is centered here. And I think that's an important distinction between this one and the first one that they did, right? Like, I just feel like people didn't actually know that Paul was a big part of that, right? This one, he is. And I just think that Paul still got it, man. He still is a box office driver. But you're right. Out of the big four, if we're talking about Dune, if we're talking about Kung Fu Panda, Ghostbusters, and then Godzilla X Kong, this is going to be the lowest grossing out of those four. Absolutely.
Yeah. I wonder. Go for it, Clayton.
I was just going to say, my question is, the question that's on everybody's lips now that we know who Agent Argyle is Podcast back? Is Podcast back in this sequel?
God, I hope so. I hope so.
Because if he's not, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if I'll see it. And they're hiding it,
or
they're hiding it. So it's going to be a surprise if Podcast is back or not. I have not seen Podcast in the trailers.
Nice goal play, and I totally forgot about Podcast.
I'm looking at the cast list for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Oh no!
And I am not seeing. Yes, Logan Kim as Podcast.
Okay,
is in this film.
So Jeff, how many millions?
Yeah. Does it open?
Does that add? Does that add?
Okay, I had said 37. Okay. I'm going to go 38 now for sure. Not even a question. 38 million. Yeah.
Nice.
Podcast has that much pull for sure.
Love it.
And this movie does list Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, and Annie Potts as being in the cast. And they just came in at the end.
Yeah. And their roles are extended. So that's the thing that makes me believe, maybe it does almost exactly the same business as the last one because they amp the star wattage here a little bit. And if it does what it did, I think they will get another trilogy. I mean, Sony, let's be honest, they need all the IP they can get. They're going to keep milking this Ghostbusters thing. If this doesn't work, they will reboot it again. They just will.
And you see, you nailed this, Jeff. And of course, we're the BO boys. We're not the Streamo boys. We're not the PVOD boys. But Sony is doing it right. They're keeping the budgets low. They're making money theatrically, even if it's not $200 million, $250 million domestic. And then the downstream is paying for it because they don't have a streamer to upkeep. Yeah. They don't have to worry about making so much crap for their streamer and then they're just going to merge with another streamer, which is what all these things are going to do, which they're all failing except for Netflix. And it's like
even Netflix, nobody knows how much they're in debt. It's like
that's true. The sword of Damocles is over their head. Definitely, it will fall at some point. And that's the thing is that we want to talk theatrical, but we also need to. These movies can be made because of downstream, and they're doing it right.
Clayton, that's a really good point because everybody that gets on Twitter, and you guys know this, everybody that gets on that social media site wants to talk about how big a failure is as a movie, just talking about their box office. And we love to talk box office, but that is not the end all be all of a film. In fact, that is just the beginning. It's nice when it has a huge number associated with the box office, but it is the PVOD. It is how many times is it going to be on Netflix? How many times is TNT going to buy this thing? There are a lot of ancillary streams. And that's why some people say that no movie ever loses money. It just may take centuries to make money. You know what I mean? And that's just the way the movie industry is. We want to call everything either a huge hit or a big bomb because of the box office. And it isn't true. So these mid-range films like this Ghostbusters film, there are a lot of Ghostbusters fans. They will buy that merch. They will buy the special popcorn containers, the Slimer containers. Yeah.
And you put your hand in his mouth. It comes out all gooey.
Yeah, and it comes out and it's got all this crap on it, and you still eat it because it's just sugar. It's just corn syrup. It's nice. And that's the way that these films live on, and they can keep making sequels to these films. Now, I mean, what do you guys think of Godzilla X Kong, though? I mean, if Godzilla -1 could do what it did at the box office, which was amazing, what is this thing going to do? Because I think it's going to be big.
So I think it's going to be big because, listen, Kong was always the star. You know, Clayton and I have talked about this a lot, that Kong was the star, Godzilla was the sidekick when they teamed up, or at least here in the States, domestically.
Yes, domestically, Kong is
domestically,
king.
Kong was a star. But after Godzilla -1, Godzilla's Q score is higher than it's probably been since the days of the promotion for the Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie. You know, that was probably the height in the States of that, you know, bigger is better promotion. Size matters. Size matters.
Yeah.
And I think it's all been downhill for Godzilla since then. But then Godzilla -1 raises his profile. I wouldn't say he now could stand shoulder to shoulder with Kong, but Kong does have a worthy co-star now in a way that has never had before.
And first billing. Warner Brothers is obviously big on Godzilla. It's, you know,
that's right.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Maybe it is alphabetical, but there's a reason they went with Godzilla X Kong versus Kong X Godzilla, right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe they know something we don't know about these metrics.
What do you think about the going with the X rather than the versus? Is there any kind of box office downgrade when you have them Xing each other rather than
it's a collab, Pat. It's a collab.
It's a collab. Yeah. I mean, do people want a collab though, or do they want them to duke it out? Because they're not going to be duking it out here.
No, and it's cool. Like let's be honest. Anytime you put an X, like Malcolm X is cool, not just because of the message, but his last name is X. That's pretty cool, right? It just is.
Right.
You know, any film that makes it to X10, number 10, it's a cool franchise. You know, so you put an X in anything like that, you're like, everybody's like, man, that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Yep. I may go see that film just because there's an X in it. There's not a lot of X in a lot of movies. Let's just be honest. Right. You know, X is probably the forgotten letter in the alphabet when we're talking about movies. It's X and Z probably, right?
Does Warner Brothers start selling the X hats again?
Yes. You know, you just put an X on stuff. That's all you need to do. You know, GXK should be everywhere, like RBX, like Reebok. You know, that's how it should be. They should just be selling merch like that because it's cool. Because it's cool to not say what you're actually selling, because then you're in on something, you're on the ground level. It's secret, man. And that's what, to me, Godzilla X Kong, that's what Warner Brothers is doing. They're trying to be the cool cats. No shade thrown. That's cool. I like it.
Yeah. And you know, the three of us, we're all Gen X. We're all from that 90s generation of
Pat is.
GXK sounds like they're Turtles. Again, Turtles, big Gen X thing for all three of us. GXK sounds like a skate mag, you know, which sounds cool. GXK, okay, that's something underground. That's something that I want to be in on. They should really lean into the GXK. I'm very big on this movie. Clayton, I know you especially have had some Godzilla reservations. Has Godzilla -1 waylaid any of those for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you that this Godzilla -1, you know, and as much as the Oscars don't matter as much as they used to, if that movie wins Best Special Effects, I mean, that's gonna boost the Q score even higher. My one reservation here is that America doesn't do Godzilla right. They just don't. They do Kong right. They don't do Godzilla right. Yeah. That's my worry. But I do think the interest level is up. There was an Apple Plus show that's building up to this movie. I don't think that's really going to do anything other than, you know, anybody who has a laptop or bought an iPhone can watch that show if they want to. It might just start auto playing after Killers of the Flower Moon. So there is some opportunity there for people to catch on board. Yes, I think this Godzilla is in a way better place in America than he has been in a very long time. Since that, you know, 2014 film that did pretty well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just before we get out of March, A couple of other smaller things are opening. I mean, there's a horror movie called Imaginary from Lionsgate. You know, that could do business just because horror is always going to do okay. I want to throw something out there. Love Lies Bleeding is a A24 movie with one of your favorites, Clayton, Kristen Stewart. And it's like a female bodybuilders go on a robbery spree type of movie, and it could fall into that Driveway Dolls type of 90s thing, though I think Driveway Dolls seems goofier in a way that Love Lies Bleeding A24 movie. I think it could hit those, A24 fanboys. I think capitalize in a way off of the Iron Claw doing so well. I mean, so in terms of small movies that could do a little bit of business, I think this could do well. And again, Clayton, I know you're kind of high on this, or am I misrepresenting
I mean, no,
that?
no, not at all. This is my most anticipated movie
Wow.
of this whole season.
Oh wow.
Wow.
And I think,
Wow.
I mean, I'm not seeing uncut gems potential here. I'm not seeing Everywhere All at Once, obviously, because it's very niche. It's crime. It is a period piece. But could this thing make 20 million? I think. I mean,
Okay.
if we're talking A24 movie, probably the budget's pretty reasonable. If we're talking 15 to 20 million, I think it could reach that. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of buzz for this film.
What was the director, Rose Glass, right? What was her previous film?
I remember Brett was talking about the previous film.
Is she Saint
from the New
Maud? Am I
Flash.
yes, right
Saint
about that?
Maud. Saint
Yeah.
Maud.
And that movie did like nothing right at the box office, right? Like
I think that was a 2020 movie. I think that was a movie that
difficult time.
that came out in the worst possible time. And
It
I
is
think
a
it's
2020 movie. Yes, it did not have any domestic box office.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't even in consideration, really. You can't even really base it off that. Yeah.
I think she's someone who, with that movie, has the film bro cred. People in that circle are looking forward to her next movie. I mean, Kristen Stewart is obviously not a big box office star now, but she's always going to have name recognition. So again, I think in that art house level, I do think this is the one that has breakout potential.
I'm going to disagree with the BO boys on this one. I just think she is outside of, what she did for big budget movies that she was in, the Twilight franchise, which, she was great in those for what it was. But I just think that the Kristen Stewart show that has been on since, all these award shows have been talking about her and this, and she has a lot of statements to say, which is fine. But it goes to the point that usually happens is that you get a lot of recognition and you get a lot of sound bites, but that doesn't usually translate to box office, and I feel like that's going to be a problem for this film. It's just the subject matter is, again, reminds me of a 90s film, which is great. Like, I love that personally. I'll probably, like Clayton, I will like this film. I just don't think people are going to barely even scratch the surface. Whereas Iron Claw, I thought, had a better window and a better way in because of the stars of their film. And because of, wrestling was always a popular sport, obviously. And that translates. I don't see what translates Love Lies Bleeding to people actually going to see this, because it's like it's a gay lesbian thriller type experience, right? Like, and I just, in my mind, films that I've seen like that barely even get a theatrical release. And I love that A24 is pushing it. A24 pushes some of the greatest content out there. At the end of the year, A24 usually has some of my favorite movies. But I feel like this Civil War is the one that will actually break through for them in April. They're obviously very high on that. That's going to hit IMAX screens in April. That is the one that, if we're talking about a smaller film, Civil War could really break out, because I think what it's talking about is kind of what's on people's minds, which is why this hot button film got made. Is that, could we really have another Civil War? Hell yeah, we could. And this is how it's going to happen. And I think it looks really interesting. And I think whether you lean left or right, you're going to want to go see this film. I think it's an interesting premise.
Now, Jeff, okay, talking Love Lies Bleeding here. And also, Civil War. There was a movie called Bushwick that came out a few years ago. Do you remember this? That had Batista in it.
No.
Had a very similar premise.
Oh,
and
really?
That was a very fun movie, and I
Yeah.
would much prefer watching that movie than Civil War.
Civil
I
War,
believe.
yeah.
But let's look at something like Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Made $11 million. Do you think that Love Lies Bleeding could do that? Bodies numbers.
It opens 3.8 against Kung Fu Panda. It depends. Honestly, it depends how wide they go. I think if A24 is smart on this one, they got to go wide from the get-go. There's not going to be time to expand this, to roll this thing out and gain traction, because of all the big movies that are coming out in March. You're not going to get the headlines. No matter how much wordplay Kristen Stewart is putting out there, it will not matter. The other thing is, if I'm looking at these smaller films, I'm looking at the American Society of Magical Negroes, right, which comes out on 3/15. That has a certain built-in audience to it, and it looks pretty funny to me.
The trailer was really funny, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that a small one could break out. Also, you got Sydney Sweeney's horror film from Neon Films called Immaculate. That opens wide on 3/22. So if I'm looking at actual smaller films that are going to open bigger, like I do think Sydney Sweeney's on the brink of maybe being a big star. Whether you want that or not, it seems to be happening, you guys.
We want stars. We want stars.
Exactly. I think we do. I think we do. And she's proven, just, with her last film, Anyone But You, that she has this certain je ne sais quoi. There's something about her that translates very easily onto the silver screen, and if, let's say, Neon pulls out this horror film and she's basically the selling point, right? And if it hits, well, we do have a star. We got another breakout horror film here besides Imaginary from Lionsgate, which is the big horror film in March. So there's some interesting things in play, I think, in the indie world and in the blockbuster world in March. And that's what makes this month like almost better than any summer month out there, because there is the potential to have not only blockbuster hits, but indie hits. And that's great for the box office.
Now, real quick, sorry, Pat. Jeff, I just want to say, because, of course, legend in box office, obviously, you know what you're talking about. I now am tempering what I said earlier, because I do think I was I got hyped. I was half man, half hype. I was overhyped. Yeah. Love Lies Bleeding. Its best case scenario probably is Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. If we're really being honest, so. Best case scenario. And will it reach that? I think there is definitely a possibility. But from what you're saying, with all that competition, this may end up being $6-7 million, something like that.
And it's got to go wide. Yeah, it's got to go like 800 to 1,000 screens opening weekend. I don't know what they're doing yet.
You can't platform it. You can't.
These days, I think platforming is a thing of the past.
You can't do it.
Beyond a weekend or two, because word spreads quickly. Something gets good reviews, gets commercials. People got to be able to see it immediately, or they never will. You mentioned Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney. I'd love to see her in a horror movie that hits. This one, she plays a nun, which I think there's a hook there for sure. Yeah. What I've seen on this, it looks like arty horror rather than Sydney Sweeney in a I Know What You Did Last Summer type of horror movie. I think Sydney Sweeney in that type of movie, if she was in a Scream ripoff or an I Know What You Did Last Summer, that's a full-on hit. Her as a nun in a sort of like this psychological horror, I think that's always more iffy at the box office. But, you get her in a more traditional slasher or a
see, Pat, I think I sort of agree with you, but not to the point of that, like that sort of slasher. I mean, I think if she was in something that was more akin to Megan, if she was in a Blumhouse movie, that's what I'm saying. I think
like a more popcorn horror movie. Megan,
so and that's what's popular. That's what's popular now. It's not the slasher stuff, and if she was in a Thanksgiving sort of movie, I don't think that. I think that's more passé than anything. I think that's what you're talking about is more popcorn horror, or not not like a Saint Maud, which was a really great movie, but it's not a popcorn film. So absolutely, Immaculate does look more akin to that.
And even if it makes 10, 15 million, that's a decent sized hit for Neon, because this thing probably costs next to nothing to make, probably under 5 million, I assume. And Neon doesn't traditionally make a lot of money, but they're already pushing her name. And that's big for Neon, because they don't push anything really. not except for Ferrari, but Ferrari was a film that none of the major studios wanted, and it kind of got dropped off on Neon's doorstep, right? Like, here's a Michael Bay film, guys.
Immaculate can end up making more for domestically than Ferrari did, and I think that's obviously all Sydney Sweeney. Jeff, you mentioned Civil War, so that's the new Alex Garland movie. It's A24, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. That's not low budget A24. No, this is their big swing movie.
This is, A24. It's no secret to anybody in the industry what A24 wants to do. They want to make big movies. They want to compete with the major studios. They're tired of being the indie shingle darling. Like, as weird as that sounds, like if you were the most popular indie distributor, shouldn't that be enough, right? Shouldn't that be that's the highest height, right? Like Searchlight was at one time, Focus Features probably was at one time, and then RIP to Paramount Vantage and all these other little shingles. Remember WIP, Warner Independent Pictures. There were all of these. Everybody wanted a shingle to be number one, and they all had moderate success. But it's like Searchlight and Focus, and now A24. Those are the big three, and A24 is on top of that mountain. But they don't want to stop there. And you're right. This is their play for major box office. And I don't know what this thing cost. I haven't seen a budget.
50. That's what it says online. And who knows? I mean,
and that seems like a good starting place for A24. If they're gonna spend $50 million on a film like this, is it gonna get there? That's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. But they're gonna have IMAX, and it is. If you look at April, which is kind of a shit show. Like, let's be honest about what April looks like. It is not March. It's kind of a shit show. There's some weird stuff. There's a couple horror. There's Abigail, Monkey Man. We have no idea what Monkey Man's going to do.
Oh,
Challengers at the end of the month. Zendaya again. I mean, that might be fun. That might do some biz. But other than that, it's slim pickings. So Civil War might be that breakout of April.
Yeah.
Civil War is going to get a lot of talk.
Yeah.
But as we say, tweets aren't ticks. This is going to be so indicative of, just because people are talking about it on X, does that mean that people are going to go? Or is it going to be a separate thing where people say, well, this looks like a war movie. I want to see it. It looks interesting. I'm not on X, so it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
That's going to be the thing. I think a general audience is going to want to see this movie. And watching the trailer, I don't see it, other than if they're just, it's a gun and explosion movie, right? Yeah. That I need a little bit more info on this movie and more trailers and more to really make a decision about what I think this movie is going to do before I make any sort of big statement about what I think it's going to do. I just think it's going to be very annoying to read about this movie online, and I will avoid it, I think.
Yeah, that one's a huge question mark. I mean, it doesn't have a guaranteed. It has people who people know. Obviously, Kirsten Dunst is famous. Jesse Plemons is famous for being her husband. Nick Offerman's famous for memes from his TV show. Yeah. You've got people that are famous, but no one who's a draw.
I mean,
Garland characters.
Garland
is the draw.
The draw. Garland is the draw.
People didn't like Men, but they remember Men. Right?
And Men's such a small movie in comparison.
It is. Absolutely.
People don't even remember that. I think if you asked about Alex Garland, they'd say, "Oh, Annihilation," or "Oh, Ex Machina."
Exactly.
They're not going to remember.
Yeah, it's just that Men is his last one. Right?
Oh, true.
I believe it was A24 also.
Yes.
And they were expecting much bigger things from Men, but Men is it's a weird ass film, and it was never intended really for the multiplex masses. That is not their kind of film. Civil War is more the multiplex masses type of film. And I guess, guys, when I'm looking at this release schedule, the release slate for April, I'm looking at The First Omen, which what the hell?
Yeah.
Disney, 20th Century, Monkey Man, Abigail, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. This is Guy Ritchie film, and then Unsung Hero, which I don't even know, is that a Lionsgate faith-based? I don't even know what that is. So when we look at these and then we throw Civil War in there, Civil War, Abigail, Guy Ritchie does what Guy Ritchie does. And then you have the question marks, Monkey Man and Challengers. I just don't know. I don't know how big Dev Patel, is this a breakout film for him as a director and actor? Maybe.
I mean, Pat, do you want to take this? I mean, I think we're very high on Monkey
Yeah.
Man.
Well, we have some listeners who are very high on this. I mean, OG, OG wannabe oh boy, Anna from the Stacks alerted us to this trailer the second
Yeah.
it dropped, and I think, you know, John Wick is everyone of course is
Yeah.
comparing it to John Wick for
Yeah.
the look of it, but I do think there's a big difference between Dev Patel and Keanu in terms
Yeah.
of star power, Q rating, and all that. But I do think there is that potential for, there's not a lot of pure action when you look at March. There's sci-fi spectacle, there's Godzilla v Kong, X Kong, sorry, collab, spectacle. But I think we saw with The Beekeeper, where there's always going to be this hunger for just guys punching each other in the face. And I think Monkey Man is promising you that. I could see it doing mid-teens in its opening, and then if it's great, going from there. I think that's a possibility. And listen, First Omen, it's a brand name, and brand names don't always mean anything. Look at The Exorcist, but in a way they do, because Exorcist Believers stunk and people didn't like it, but it's still opened to something.
Yeah.
And so I think this Omen movie is going to do the same.
Have at least a box office stamp.
I sort of question though, because when's the last time there was an Omen film?
I think exactly Omen 666, but I think that was straight to video.
Yeah, I think you're right, Pat. It is an IP, obviously, but I think that is for young people who do go to horror movies. That is such a marginal sort of IP, even less than The Exorcist. Well, going back to Monkey Man real quickly. I think the thing that separates this, and Pat, you're talking John Wick, and John Wick is, at least John Wick 1 is sort of the template for this. This is not tongue-in-cheek. This movie could have a sense of humor, which I think John Wick #1 definitely did.
Yeah.
But it is not Bullet Train. It is not Argyle. Right. It is not Fall Guy. The humor, if there's humor in this movie, is not the Brad Pitt making quips. Yeah. And I think that is what Beekeeper had a sense of humor about itself.
Yeah, it did.
But it wasn't tongue in cheek in the way that some of these action movies are, because they, had to ride the coattails of superhero movies, which could not take themselves seriously.
Yeah.
Other than the Nolan Batmans. I think that Monkey Man's strength is that it's a straight up ass kicker. And that is something that people are hungering for.
I like it. Is it too late to call it Monkey Man X though? Monkey X Man, like
Monkey X Man.
Cool. Like Monkey X Man. The one thing that I really like about this, the backstory of this film, is that it was a Netflix release, and Universal brought it out of there to release it in theaters, which I think is awesome. Like, that should happen more often. We should be looking at Netflix, because let's be honest, most Netflix films are kind of junky. They're janky. They're low budget in the places they shouldn't be low budget, which is like props and backgrounds. They spend on the talent, but then they forget to spend on what makes a movie, like a poster, or an imprint of this is what we're selling you, because you don't know. You see this weird image with a new movie and you're just like, I guess I'll watch it because it's free, but I don't know what this is. They don't make an imprint on their films. I like that someone said, hey, this Monkey Man, there's something to this, and we got to rescue it from Netflix and bring it to the big screen. Honestly, it would be pretty cool if this became a hit and then people started poaching Netflix for their films, putting them in theaters, and then you can roll them on Netflix later. That's, to me, let's see it. This is the most interesting thing about this, is that if this works, what is to stop Sony and Lionsgate from poaching some of Netflix? We would say, hey, you guys don't have to worry about the promotion of Netflix, because I know you don't want to do it anyways, and you won't do it, but we will do it for you, because we know there's money to be made here. That is the thing that I hope most for Monkey Man. And if it is a hit, maybe that happens.
Now, I heard, isn't the buzz on this that Netflix didn't want to release it because they were afraid it was going to offend the government? Like, I heard that this was a thing where they were not going to release it because they were afraid they want to expand, they want to expand everywhere. They want to be everywhere in the world. Yeah. And there was something about this movie that might be too controversial for them to put on. And so it was saved. I don't know if that's true or not. if that is the story, that's a great story, because then it's like, hey, we're saving this movie from not only from the clutches of Netflix, but from censorship. You know,
Yeah. No,
I think
that's
that
cool.
is a
That
great
cool.
angle if true.
Yeah. Can they do the same with Coyote versus Acme? Can someone just buy that goddamn film and put it, like, how great would that be, honestly, if that opened in April? There's a perfect window for a Coyote versus Acme in April. Are you kidding me? It'd have a great
I mean, if that opened in early February, again, when Migration was continued to do business, just because that movie would have done well. That movie would have done its teens opening and multiplied well, because it's a kids movie, and you know, if it was a well-reviewed comedy, it would have done some business. I want to throw out a couple of more movies opening in April. Jeff, what do you know about this remake of the Christina Applegate "Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead"? Did you know that there is a Tyra Banks starring R-rated, supposedly horror movie version of that, you know, for us Gen X generation, all three of us, that 1991 cult classic?
I don't know how many people know this, but I'm in film distribution, and studios send me the films that are coming out in theaters to put on calendars to basically sell back to these media organizations, right? So they know what is coming out in theaters. I have not heard of this. The only way I know about this film is that the MPA rated it. And so I saw it on there. I'm like, what the hell is this? But so what studio is this coming from? I can't tell you, because they haven't sent me the information. If you're not sending Jeff Bock at Exhibitor Relations the information, it's not getting on the schedules. If it's not getting on the schedules, theater owners don't know that this film even exists, right?
Wow.
So there's a problem already I'm seeing with this. I thought it was like straight. I didn't know what that was. When I saw that, I'm like, I have no idea. So now thank you for enlightening me what this is, but who's putting it out?
So it's Iconic releasing.
Okay. Because they don't even send box office numbers. You know?
Wow. Do you know of any other film that Iconic releasing has ever put out?
No, because they never send me box office numbers. I see that sometimes they have films. They never report their numbers, at least to us. And if they do report to Mojo or Variety or Deadline, they you know, it's random, you know? So again, can we even count this as a box office release if they don't even release numbers? Did it even exist?
Wow.
That's awesome.
I can't believe in 2024 a Tyra Banks movie possibly might not release box office numbers. That's stunning to me.
Wait, so Pat, I'm sorry, because I was looking up the whole Monkey Man India thing, and that's why Netflix gave it up, is because they were afraid they were gonna harm their dealings with India.
Oh, interesting.
But so Tyra Banks is starring in this?
Is starring in this, yes.
Is she playing the Christina Applegate part? Because she is way too old for that part.
Yeah.
No offense. I mean, I don't want to be ageist.
Yeah.
My guess is that Tyra Banks is probably playing the babysitter. That would be my guess, is that she's going to be the evil babysitter who gets killed.
Yeah.
Oh, she's the dead. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Who does remember the babysitter's in the movie for a while because they hate her, and then eventually she gets killed. So that would be my guess. Because if she plays the parents who are away, then she's pretty much out of the movie from the beginning. So that would be my guess, is that she plays the babysitter. But I guess we will see or not see.
We'll see. Boys, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you guys having me on. I do have to roll. The Hollywood calls.
Iconic releasing calls.
But I got a couple more minutes if you want me for your wrap up. Otherwise, let me know.
So the last movie I think we got to get your take on. Can you give us your take? Challengers, Zendaya. Could this be big?
MGM has been doing a great job. Let's be honest. American Fiction, Boys on the Boat, The Beekeeper, they've been hitting it out of the park. Solid ground rule doubles all the way around the field, right? And I love that MGM is becoming a major studio, right? Like they're putting out enough content to consider them as one of the big studios. They don't have a lot on their slate coming, obviously. But what I've seen from Challengers and the reactions I get when I watch this trailer are actually quite interesting. Like people seem genuinely interested, even though it would have done even better if it was about pickleball instead of tennis. But because tennis is kind of the old school pickleball now, right? And we all know those of us who do play pickleball, it's an addiction that is just sweeping the nation, right? So if you told me the Challengers was set in the pickleball world, I would be like, dude, this thing might do 50 million. As it is, though, even though I just think it's a great role for Zendaya. And like Clayton said, she is going upward. She's still trending. And Dune 2 is going to push her way, way up because she's actually in this film. And I think Challenger is going to benefit from that. I don't know who these two guys are that she's dating or screwing around with or whatever she's doing with these guys. But it feels like, remember Woody Allen's Match Point? That did pretty well in theaters. And I feel like this has a chance to surprise and kind of last into summer because it opens that last week of April. I'm pretty high on this film. I think it's great. Luke is obviously I think he's a fascinating filmmaker. He always puts out an interesting product. You may not absolutely love it or like it, but you have to appreciate, I think, his artistic direction.
I love it. And, this isn't a rom-com, but it could be some of that Anyone But You juice in that it plays for a long time. It's an old-fashioned, I want to see this movie star on the big screen type of movie. And it could play all the way through May into June and just rack it up. And then you turn around and, oh man, this movie's made $60 million.
Yeah, exactly.
This movie is horny. This movie is sex is coming back to the theaters, guys.
That's what we like to see.
And that, this is on the cusp of this new horniness at the theaters, and I'm all for it. I think this movie is going to do really well because of that. People want to be horny at the theater again. Yes.
We haven't had 50 Shades of Grey for a long time. People need this in their lives, They need to whack some balls. That's the nature of the box office business.
Yes. Whack your balls at Challengers. That is
with your Dune popcorn bucket. Bring your Dune popcorn bucket to Challengers.
Whack some balls. You can catch the balls in the bucket. Yeah, that's how it goes. That's how we work this.
So Jeff has got to go, and I want Clayton make sure to get his recording. So how about this? Let's end this episode here on the podcast feed. Clayton and I will take this to YouTube to continue and do some mailbag and some other stuff. So we're going to wrap this up. Clayton, I don't think we have anything left to say.
No, other than, Jeff, where can they find you very quickly?
Just hit me at ERC Box Office on Twitter X, baby. That's where I exist, mostly.
Love it.
Great.
That's it.
Clayton, let's do the quick version.
Okay.
Until next time, we'll smell you
at the box office. Nailed it.
Nailed it.